this is an interesting show because there was a little bit of stuff today. Laurie Whitwell, tier 1 Laurie and that, shout out Laurie, talking about Ollie Watkins and saying that, he's on the list. There's been some conversations whilst they were talking about Rashi and seeing what could be done. And it's nothing more than exploratory talks at the moment, just, seeing a feel for the vibe of what's going on. But some links to Ollie Watkins, man. Who wants to open up the floor with who's liking that list?
I don't mind
Take
Ollie
it
Watkins.
away.
I don't mind Ollie Watkins. I don't think it's a bad striker. I don't think we're in a position to... Well, he's a good player. Sometimes after one season, people change their minds on people. Like, don't get twisted. I'm not saying go crazy and go and get Calvin Lewin or nothing crazy like that for free. I haven't gone to that level. But Ollie Watkins is a good striker. Even I heard these random links on weekend about Ivan Toney and stuff. Not happening, but I would even do that. That's how mad it is, where you're talking Mbeumo, Watkins, Cunha, Bruno. Bruno's in dreamland. Bruno's like, I'm gonna pass the people that know what to do when I send this ball into the front line. So I'm all behind the signing. I don't even think, obviously Gyökeres is like a really good player, but Watkins could work out better in our system in the Premier League. Just saying.
Yeah.
Like, it could work out. It could be a really good... He's a good player. He's a really hard-working, and it almost... we keep talking about Bastard FC by that rough spine, that a bit mean, a bit... They're up for it, they're going to fight, and they're going to play. That's what I'm getting from him.
Yeah, I'm with you. I read this piece way back in February, March, and it's from some account, and they're talking about, calling these strikers these power forwards is what they called them. They give them a new name, like this.
Like basketball, the power forwards.
Yeah. They gave them that, and the reason for it is they're talking about the running that they do, how much they run the channels, how intense they're sprinting, because you look at the numbers and the intensity of the Premier League is higher than ever. It's gone up. The sprints, the runs, everybody's doing it now. Nobody's playing super slow possession. Everybody's running these days. And it was talking about him. And the guy who was rated the highest on this is Victor Gyökeres. It's what Amorim wants. The striker who's running the channels all day, never stops running, never stops moving. That's what he's best at. And it always interested me looking at it, because the player on their graphs who showed up highest next to Gyökeres was Ollie Watkins. And I was like, that's interesting. That's interesting. And so I kept having him on my mind, and I brought him up in a bunch of videos I did recently saying, United have looked at Ollie Watkins in the past. They tried to sign him a few years back. They've been watching him. They've been keeping an eye on him. There might be a deal here that could work. And he makes a lot of sense if you want to stick with a player who will do some of the things that Victor Gyökeres does as well, in terms of his running, in terms of his movement in those channels. But this guy scored the third most goals in the Premier League over the last 5 years. He's not like some nobody. And, between him and Mbeumo and Cunha, you got 3 of the top 10 goal scorers from last season in the Premier League. I'd take it. I would take that in a heartbeat.
I agree. I think, people talking about him having a bad season last year. He got 16 goals in the Premier League. Imagine how much our fan base would have creamed if Højlund got 16 goals in the Premier League last season. 16 goals in the squad. Oh my. Look, we haven't got prime Ronaldo.
Alice is already hot, man. Sure.
We've got Højlund. What did he get? 4 goals. 4 goals in the league or something like that last season. I tried to give Højlund the backing and support, first season young player, but we can't be turning our nose up at strikers when we've got 4 goals Højlund playing up top. Højlund might be a great player in the future. I believe he will be a really good player in the future, potentially with the right move, the right development, the right environment. But we need someone that's just ready now. You've got Cunha, probably got Mbeumo over the line, hopefully this week, fingers crossed. Can it take any longer? I don't know. But I look at Watkins and I go, Ekitike, they're asking for 85 million. That's ridiculous. He wasn't great at PSG. This is his first good season in a while. We've looked at Frankfurt and strikers like Kolomoani, Jovic. They haven't always been the best. You look at the Bundesliga transition as well. Werner, I like Ekitike, but we're not in a position to spend 85 million on a young striker. I think he's a great player, but we're not in that position. We need experience. Victor Gyökeres, the ideal guy. He prefers Arsenal. The striker market isn't good. I don't look at the striker market and name 5 players I'd love at Manchester United. I'm struggling. I'm like, well, Osimhen's the dream, but he probably wants ridiculous wages. Like other than that, I'm like, I don't know where we go. So I look at Ollie Watkins and I think getting older, Villa may be looking to sell. If you could get Ollie Watkins for £40 million, he probably might be 45 million. I think that's a good bit of business because you've got Premier League proven, you've got ready now, and hopefully in 2 years' time, we're in a position where the striker market's a lot better and we're in a position where we're a lot more stable, where we could spend 60, 70 million on a young striker again. But I just think we need someone to come in to score goals, is going to make an impact now that is good. You know, people saying bad season, 16 goals. You know, I think you could do a lot worse.
Yeah, I think it does go on to that the bit Alice was just saying about it is price. Like if the price is good, then I think you have to go for it, because this would be Ineos's oldest signing. Like he's going to turn 30 soon, and that is, you know, something that they, as we saw from the Delap deal that fell through or whatever, like that's not their MO. And the deals that they've had so far, even the contracts that we're sewing up so far, like the players that we've been tying down in the academy, we know where their focus is. They're thinking resale value. They're thinking, you know, a long-term nature, but also a bit of a get-out clause as well. Because if Watkins doesn't do well, like let's say he doesn't, we're screwed. Like it's just a player that doesn't do well, and you add him onto the long list of players that haven't, and to the ones that are making our already perilous financial situation even worse. But one thing that I do like about it is it fits the same mold as the Mbeumo and Cunha signings, where it is Premier League proven, it is all the things that we keep saying, but it also probably does something that those two don't, which is it does light a bit of a fire underneath the players around them. Whereas Cunha and Mbeumo, you kind of think, all right, you're coming in, you're going to do this. You might elevate the players around you in, like, you know, neighboring positions, but we know you're the guys that are going to be doing this. Like, we're just here to facilitate you. Whereas Watkins is like, if Xerxes there, and potentially if Højlund stays, it's like, is that someone that Højlund can now actually learn from, which we've all been asking for the past 18 months? Or is it someone that could have the adverse effect on either of them? What that looks like with Højlund, like Alice said, 4 goals. Like, could he get worse? And could his confidence dip even further? Or is he on the way out? So I think there's a few more unknowns with that. But I also don't think Watkins looks like a very happy boy at Villa at the minute. Like I think last season with that, what should have been a partnership with Duran ended up being a bit of a fight for one place, and then he had to fight again for Rashford, and yet he still outplayed both of them. Like I think from his point of view, he's probably thinking, what more can I do to be the leading guy? But the timing for him is really interesting because, and I've said this with a lot of players, the World Cup is next year, so he's probably thinking, you know what? Can a top Villa striker even make it into the England squad? I don't know. Like sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. But can a top Man United striker make it into the England squad? Mate, a dead Man United striker makes it into the England squad. So I think it'll be a smart move for him. And I think it's all down to money. Like if we're quoted anywhere near the same prices as Gyökeres or like what Sesko to Arsenal, or even João Pedro has just gone for 50 million to Chelsea. If we're quoted that sort of money for someone who's 29, I'll struggle to palate it, but around the 35, 40 mark, I think that's a really good bit of business, because that's what people were saying for Mateta. And out of the two,
I think 50 million for a player like Watkins is not the worst thing in the world. You have to remember, guys, that I know we do this 30 is a death sentence for players, but it's not. It really isn't. It's literally
not nowadays anyway. Like no.
You want to be older and you're smarter, better movement, better decision making. You know, like that's what Man United need: calmness, relaxedness in front of goal. You want that kind of thing. And with a striker like a Watkins, it's not the worst thing in the world. I see what the good ones. You know what, Kane, Lewandowski. Now Watkins is not that at all. He's not them, but I would say he's beneath that. But he's a good Premier League striker, and we are just playing Premier League football. I think he'll be a nightmare for I want the person in front of goal to know exactly what they're doing, and they've dealt with the barren spell and overcame that in a season. They know what to do in those moments. That's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for all this other stuff or this development stuff that turns out to not, like, you sign Ekitike. We need him to be ready. We need him to be able to deal with the burden. You don't want to be saying, oh, I feel really bad for the poor kid. He's out there trying his best and look, nothing's happening for him. I don't want that with our next player. We kind of need some sure type things. Hence why we've liked the likes of the Osimhen's, the Osimhen, who else is a striker that you know? Who?
Gyökeres, what are you saying?
Gyökeres, you hope that he's just going to hit the ground running, you know, but just Premier League proven, but done it at a club that's not that great anyway. So they know how to feed off scraps, but it can
he's
still
doing it
make
at a team that's better than us. That's what we're forgetting about Watkins is he's playing in a far better team. He's been playing at a high level. He's been playing Champions League. And I think we can get, in terms of the quality of the player, I don't even think there's a discussion to be had.
He's top.
Like we absolutely could not afford to turn your noses off or scoff at, age, or he's at Villa or this, that, and the third. And like you guys have all said, supposedly a bad season. I think it's just a bit of an unsettling season for him. I think he's done his best work when he's been the out-and-out number one guy, untouchable. John Duran starts coming through, kicking down the door, displacing him here and there, earned his starts. Then when he started games, he wasn't as prolific. Then he leaves, but then he sees Rashford sort of swanning in through the door. I just want to get some football, get a smile back on my face. I really do want Barcelona. And, Ollie Watkins said it straight. Fair play to him. He said it in the interviews, didn't he? After games, he was like, yeah, I'll be lying if I wasn't banging down the gaffer's door saying, like, why am I starting games? I've been a big part of... He's been a massive part of helping Villa get to where they were. And then when it got to the big boy games, FA Cups and other games in the Champions League, it was Rashford starting over him. And he's going, what the hell? So he's ambitious. I think he would take that all day long to go to Man United and be the number one striker, regardless of Champions League football. I think he would. And Villa, with PSR issues, well, you say PSR issues, they've agreed to sell their women's team now, which has helped alleviate a lot of that. There's a lot of that sort of stuff going on.
One time, no, it's temporary. It's temporary.
So they've got
squad cost control problems with UEFA though as well. They've got a couple of different issues to solve there.
So they still have stuff they need to address.